all I say is I predict that Boschong will win the title battle. Boschong 2022 world title. Guess who called it first?
Hello and welcome to the F1 Feeder Series podcast, your guide to keeping up to date on everything in the junior single-seater world. We've somehow made it. It is March, and that means the headline Feeder Series Act Formula 2 is back this very month. And to celebrate, we not only have the returning Floris Visman after a week off, never do that again, Floris, but also a voice many people recognize, the self-proclaimed, and he just said this in the pre-show, loudmouth malcontent Kiwi himself, Josh Revell. Now, for the one listener who doesn't know you, can you briefly introduce yourself, Josh, and how has the off-season treated you?
Yeah, so I'm a Formula One YouTuber from New Zealand, already potent mixture, and so basically I sort of cover a lot of different things and project it in a way which is not too boring, a bit more sort of humorous, lighthearted. Also, at the same time as well, being a bit honest about how motor racing works sometimes, a la, not quite squeaky clean, shall we put it that way?
And I understand exactly what you mean, and a lot of people who have listened to you will know exactly what you mean. How's the off-season been for you?
Yeah, I prefer that I had a bit more time off, but F1, not F1, YouTube algorithm sort of does that to you, I guess. You got to stay in there, keep the channel alive. But otherwise, it's been relatively okay. Now we're starting to get freedoms up here in New Zealand, so hopefully things do improve for the next sort of few weeks we got left until all the racing resumes.
All the racing resumes, and racing specifically because we've got F2 and F3 testing happening this week as well. So we're going to see some cars on track. And you mentioned as well, Josh, just some time off. Floris, you've had time off. You had a week off the podcast. How are things with you? Are you happy to leave Formula Regional Asia and Formula 4 UAE behind?
Well, thank you, Jim, that you think the podcast is the only thing I do in my life. I actually have a real job. I have a real job, and I have, of course, F1 Feeder Series, which is not only a podcast, but which is also a website and a Twitter. And I have 10 editors writing articles for me. So I'm quite busy. Thank you for asking, Jim.
Hey, that 1 hour a week of you talking is very difficult. I know that.
That's true.
You do mention that we do have more than a podcast. So obviously everybody should be following F1 Feeder Series on Twitter, on Instagram, join the Discord. And while we're at it, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment, etc., etc. Leave a review on the podcast platform that you're listening to. I'm sure Mr. Josh Revell knows just how important all that is. And he's going to nod right now to exactly say that's very, very important. This week is nothing about Formula 4 UAE, nothing about Formula Regional, nothing about Indy Lights. This is solely an F2 preview show, which is exactly why we thought we'd have the excellent Josh Revell here, because you've watched Feeder Series for a long time, Josh. How are you thinking 2022 is going to unfold in the Formula 2 world?
I mean, there's quite a few key drivers in there that have got a point to prove, like there's probably half a dozen that have got a legitimate chance at going to Formula One next year. So, and there's only so many opportunities for points to get there. And for a few of them, there's only going to be 1 or 2 seats available for their respective academies. So, yeah, it'll be a real bloodbath, that's for sure. But then as well, whilst last year, I would say that excluding one specific driver, it was mainly a pretty damn good, grid of drivers. But this year, I sort of look at the talent. It's like, you slid a little bit, and then we'll get into those drivers, of course. But, I think for there's a good there's quite a few good drivers in this field for sure. So I think, this year F2 is going to be just as good as it was last year.
Yeah, very good year last year, I thought, with the quality of the grid that we had. Do you echo those thoughts, Floris, that we're looking at a mostly the same level of quality field this year?
Yeah, I think so. So, we have a couple of like genuine contenders, but I don't really see. But I don't know if that's fair, but like I don't see a rookie that can win it like Piastri did. Obviously, Hauer is a big one, but I don't really see that because I have another driver who I think is going to win it. We're going to talk about this later on, but the field is, I think, pretty close together because there's not, there are some questionable drivers, but there's no real like a Ragunathan, the GOAT, and there's also not a rookie that will set the world on fire, I think.
Well, you say that, but I personally didn't think Piastri was going to set the world on fire in the way that he did. I always thought he was going to be talented, but I thought him and Schwartzman would have more of a fight last year.
But he was pretty. People underestimated him but that's not fair because he won 2 championships in a row before. So, and I did the same thing you did. I also underestimated him, but he showed us we were wrong.
I don't think many people really did pick Piastri to win the title, and I think there were some that sort of hedged on to the F3 success, but Formula 2 is not a very forgiving category, especially nowadays with those extremely unreliable, crappy cars. And I'm being very tame there when I say this. I mean, they know what the problems are, and they still won't fix them. But even then, you've got to get used to the tires, race strategy, which is not something that you would do in any other junior series. The handling characteristics of the car, where by comparison to like Formula One or even sort of the older kind of Dalaras, these things handle like boats. And, there's a lot to get acclimatized to, and especially at Prema, where you had Bobby Schwartzy there. I don't think anyone realistically sort of looked at that and thought, okay, Oscar's going to come in and clean house. I thought for sure he was going to win a couple of races because Prema, he's a good driver, all that stuff. But yeah, proved us all wrong. Proved that, if you're that caliber of driver like George Russell was, or, Lewis was back in 2006, Oscar is now, it's possible. This year, though, yeah, we'll get into it later, but basically, I don't think anyone realistically sort of looked at Piastri and thought, yeah, there he is, there's our champion.
I might explain why there's no seat for Piastri when he actually went and dominated. They might have been thinking a little bit longer, and he's just done so well.
Alpine looked at it and just thought, oh shit, no, he's not going to actually get there. We didn't plan for this. Fernando, you sure you still want to be in here next? You do? Okay. Oscar, sorry, mate.
It was not part of our plan, was it? All of that.
Not part of our plan. No.
And speaking of not part of our plan, because we don't have this in the show notes, just a quick note on returning to the previous format: 2 races, sprint race, feature race. Quite a long calendar as well, 14 races, pending what happens with the replacement to Sochi. We'll see what happens there, because there's a hell of a gap from the 10th of September to the 19th of November from Sochi potentially not being there. Floris, happy to go back to the regular format?
Yeah, for sure. Because to be fair, it was kind of a shit show. Like if you messed up your weekend in the beginning, you had no chance to come back. So, and also as a reporter of F1 Feeder Series, it was just too many races in a weekend. So this is way better.
Josh, any standouts from the calendar for you? We've got returning tracks coming here. I'm quite excited to see the cars go around Imola as well.
Yeah, well, first off, I got to say that going back to the, I don't even know if it's going back to the previous format. I think there are some changes, but in general, getting rid of the format that we just had last year, great, because it was just like there were too many freebie points, especially with the reverse grid, and it would ruin a weekend if you had something go wrong in the first race, which I believe happened to Schwartzman in Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, you know, and all this talk about sort of reducing costs, and you're throwing in an extra race. Like, what are you doing? And then they add like, there's like, okay, when we're getting rid of these races, and we're adding 6 more rounds. Well, I mean, what? Okay, if this is your idea of saving money, cool. Go off to Greece. They need an accountant like you. But I think for this year, looking at the rounds that we have, or had in the case of Sochi, I think F2 around Imola. I don't know about that one personally, because I mean, yeah, F2's got a bit more passing, going on in it than F1 does, but still, I don't know. I'll just wait till it actually happens, but I've got reservations about that. What are the new rounds? You're gonna have to fill me in. Like, they're going to Zandvoort, are they? Are they going to Zandvoort?
They are going to Zandvoort. Let's just go for the whole calendar here. So I'm going to go sequentially through. So it's Bahrain, Jeddah, Imola, Barcelona, Monaco, Baku, Silverstone, Red Bull Ring, Hungaroring, Spa, Zandvoort, Monza, Sochi ? And then season finale Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, so I'd say Imola and Zandvoort is, yeah. I don't know about those ones. I don't know. Like, yeah, I mean, hey, I could be wrong, but I would say that qualifying will be essential on those ones for sure.
Yeah, the thing, just to briefly touch on this with Imola, I had similar reservations as well with Formula One, and I think the biggest benefit that we've got with an Imola round is doing it in April, where the weather and the temperatures in particular really make it a bit more of an ice rink. I suspect as well, from how we've seen the last couple of years unfold, that Sochi may turn into Turkey, and I'd love to see the F2 cars going around Istanbul Park. So anyway, we'll see. We've got a lot to talk about, and we don't know what we're talking about in terms of replacement of Russia or what the hell's going to happen at Imola, because we just don't know. But what we do know is the drivers who are going to be joining Formula 2 all year, and a new team that's starting. We're going to start from the bottom, let's say. Van Amersfoort, we've got Hughes and Cordeal. What are your thoughts on their chances for the debut season, Floris, for Van Amersfoort?
Oof, it's going to be super difficult for them. They had very little testing. They will get some now. That's also why they took on Hughes, because he has a lot of experience in motorsport, not F2 per se, but he knows how to set up a car. He's already 27 years old, by the way. Don't know what's happening there. And then, of course, we have the Belgian wonder kid, not really, Cordeal, who has had a lot of trouble with, let's say, the law, maybe. I don't know. But maybe Josh wants to say something about Cordeal, because I heard he was like a big Cordeal fan.
Really? You got to sit me up like that for us, do you?
Yep.
Far out. God. Whoa. Okay, so let's sort of backtrack a bit here. Van Amersfoort. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit perplexed when they came in. It's like, okay, they're the F3 Masters, kind of. Like, I remember someone actually mentioning when it came to Max's career, someone saying, that Max joined one of the worst teams on the F3 grid. It's like, worst F3 teams, Van Amersfoort? What are you on? Like, they're a team that you would go to. But so them going to FIF3, it's like, great, that's what we want. Then them going to FIF2, it's like, okay, I didn't expect that. I don't know how they're going to go. But they're sure as hell going to need a driver who's going to show them the way. And Hughes is that guy. There's only him and Artem Markelov, but you'd probably want to go with Hughes at this point. Because he was also sort of good with helping out Alessio over at HWA. And so, you've got two sort of bits there. You've got someone who can develop the car and someone who can help your journeyman driver. And the journeyman driver this year is Cordeal. Now, okay, so this guy is a Spanish F4 champion. Let's give him that. Let's not sort of focus on how good or bad the grid was. He was the champion, so give him that. However, and keeping on the circuit here, everything else has sort of been, to put it very mildly, below average. It's not been great, and nothing that would make you think, okay, he's ready for Formula 2. And this isn't like Alessio, where, he was doing it because he could. He was sort of living his dream almost. Cordial's legitimately trying to make a run of it by the looks of things. It's like, this is not your lane. So there is that. I do not think that he's going to get anywhere this year. Hughes, I think, might be doing similar things to what he did at HWA. I think Van Amersfoort are in a bit more of a precarious position, seeing as how they've got no experience in this category. They will need to develop a bit more. I mean, they'll obviously have some intel and input from engineers that they're bringing in who probably would have worked on F2 before and all that stuff. They won't be totally bamboozled, but it will be tricky for them. But with Cordial, I'm expecting he's going to drown this year. And I can't really say that I'm going to be too torn up about it when he's floundering at the back of the grid and getting lapped in sprint races.
Well, hopefully, as we go through the rest of the teams, you'll get off the fence a little bit, Josh, because there must be a few splinters that you've had there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to move on because, there's obviously quite a lot of teams to go through here and only so much time. And as you may expect, we've got a lot of questions for Josh as well. Flores, I'm sure people want your opinions too, so we'll ask you as well. But
that's awfully nice of you.
Very charitable. Well, as we talk about it, why don't you give your thoughts on Charouz and their chances this year? So they've got Enzo Fittipaldi, Cem Bolk-Bassi, an interesting lineup.
Yeah, so for Fittipaldi, actually, we don't know how he's going to come back from that accident he had. He still has like physical training and stuff. He had the accident, I believe it was at Jeddah last race at the start where he got hit. It was a pretty bad accident, by the way. So I don't know how he's going to come back. He's not going to, play a part in the title championship, title fight or anything. And Bolk-Bassi is also another interesting one, because I honestly think he's probably like a talented driver, but he never really had like the opportunity to blossom outside of esports. He had a season here or there, not that much. And also, like, he wanted to prepare by doing frac, but of course he had also a start accident. The two guys with start accidents. It was a really bad accident, and that messed up his car. And I heard. You never know what's true or not, but I heard that it cost him so much money. They said like, yeah, we're not going to do this. It's just too expensive to get everything fixed, and we're not going to get the super license points we want. So just quit frac, and we'll see about F2.
Josh, do you think on the Bolk-Bassi side that going to F2 straight up is too big a jump?
I mean, there were rumblings around that, he was looking to F2 on a sort of 2-year deal based on what his sponsors wanted and the backing and so forth. It's like, okay, I'm glad that someone's coming in with a sort of 2-year plan because that's needed for F2. But that is a jump, like going from Frecker to Formula 2, not just in competition, but also in the cars, obviously. Now, when it comes to Enzo Fittipaldi, hopefully he does recover in time, but I'm not expecting a lot of him, to be brutally honest with you, and especially not in Charouz. Cem, probably less so, on the basis that he doesn't have that experience at this level. It is a big leap. And I think it's fair in saying that he never really lit the track on fire in anything outside of esports, kind of, if that's being totally fair to him. I think really what we got in Charouz is sort of two all right drivers in a team which is sort of all right too, I guess. I think honestly, we know where Charouz sort of was last year. They're kind of sort of be about there as well. Drivers sort of a step below about where Sam Meyer was. So yeah, treading water almost.
So you think it's just going to be a year of just staying afloat for Chem in particular, figure out how this year goes and maybe mount something for a few podiums and wins next year?
I think the mountain for wins and podiums next year for Chem is a bit sort of stretching it. I could be wrong. But
second year driver, though.
Second year driver, sure. But there are some who we're going to get to later who are like 13 year drivers or whatever the hell they are by now. And it's just like, I wouldn't pick them to win. I wouldn't pick them to win a court case for an oil company with a paid jury, let alone a Formula 2 race with this caliber of drivers. But yeah. So that's my stance on Charouz and its drivers right now.
Let's just. I think Charouz should be happy. This is not football, and there's no relegation because they would definitely relegate to F3. I think maybe it challenge with FAR, but still, yeah.
Well, I can do a lovely segue here talking about promotion and relegation, because if we're talking about promotion, on to Trident. So Trident, a tale of two different teams entirely from F2 and F3 last year, but focusing on F2 at the moment. They're going in this year with Carlin Williams, another Southern Hemisphere boy. And for the benefit of those listening rather than watching, Josh made an unusual face there.
We'll get into it later.
Maybe a little bit of a smile for Richard Verschoor, which I'm sure with Verschoor that quite a lot of people are happy to see returning this year. How about you, Floris, your compatriot?
Yeah, so Verschoor was really a fan favorite last year, I think. Everybody was bummed when he got dropped because of finance. But he came back and everybody was happy again. And now nobody expected this for him to sign a full-time contract for this year. But I think he deserves it. He finished 11th. He didn't do all rounds. But the guy had a really weird career. Like, he was also like Cordil. He was a Spanish F4 champion. So, that speaks in his advantage. He got into the Red Bull program. He did not really good in Formula Renault Euro Cup. Like, he was bested by, I think, Neil Verhagen. Where's he now? He had a really up and down career, I think. Like, he halfway the season, he went to do F3. Then he got a podium at Monza out of nowhere. But in his full season, that was not as good as his year before. So I think he deserves the chance. But seeing as to his finances, he's not going to do F1 ever. So it's just like preparation to, I don't know where he's going to go, like WEC or DTM or whatever.
Josh, I'll get you to talk about Verschoor as well, but Floris skipped over Callum Williams. Do you want to tell us your honest thoughts?
Okay, let's talk about Callum Williams. Okay, we talked about him. Now, going on to Richard Verschoor, I think the thing that sort of really I never quite have understood is why he was dropped from the Red Bull Junior program back in, was it 2015? Was it? When was he dropped from the junior program?
It was
somewhere. It must have been 2017, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember because even back then I was always a geek with this stuff, and back then I was convicted. Back then I thought, okay, well, junior teams are sort of scholarships almost. They pay these guys. Like, now I learned it's not quite that simple, but it is an endorsement. If you're a Red Bull junior driver, that must mean you're worth a damn. And I remember looking at Richard, and he came over here for the New Zealand Toyota Racing Series.
Yeah.
And I've seen Lance come here, Lando come here, all those guys, and you generally can find the good ones. And he was one of those good ones too. I mean, he was pushing Marcus Armstrong and Schwartzman for titles. And he almost won the TRS season. I think it was just down to one crap result. But every time you give him a good car, good equipment, he can make it dance. It's that damn money problem as well that just keeps on rearing its head up. So whilst you have Callum Williams, who is about as mid as what his facial recognition would be, on a cloudy day, it's just like he has the money to come in and do these full seasons every year, despite not really doing anything. Yet at the same time, Richard can't really get the get the funding to do it. Now, if this is a full-time gig for him this year with Trident, cool, I guess. But there's only so much one can do with a Trident, So I don't know. I'm sort of again. I think there'll be the odd race where he'll do well for sure, Richard. Podiums, yeah, I'm guessing he could snag one. Callan, though, no. Move. I really do not like talking about Callum Williams at all. Nothing against the guy. It's just I'm not the biggest fan of journeyman drivers.
Floris, you want to just jump in with a little thought on Callum because you didn't get your chance to?
No, I totally agree with Josh. Like he's never done anything outstanding. I think he got a podium in F3 last year. It was his first podium in I don't know how many years. So probably he's just enjoying his time. I don't know how much money he has. If he has a spare 30 million, then we could see him in F1 in the next 2 years. I don't know, but
that's just the money part of it. Then there's the political part of it. There's so many parts. Okay, the easiest way to do things, and I'm not going to name names here, is to fix championships and then buy out entire teams and their simulators and all that stuff. But we're not going to go there today.
Well, you can.
Well, he can't because he's not rich enough.
Josh potentially leaving something there as a trailer for a video at some point.
Oh boy, I can't wait to sink my teeth into that one. But that's a burning bridges one. Once I do that one, it's just like, what's your name? Okay, you're blackballed from this paddock. You're never allowed in ever again.
All right, Jim, next one.
So some frank feedback about Callan there. Fortunately, we go into some talented drivers at Dams with Roy Nissany, Ayumu Iwasa. Josh, your thoughts on Dams for 2022?
Yeah. So first off, we can kick Roy Nissany's backside a little bit here. No, like Roy he's all right. I mean, I say this with sincerity. I think, when he's not, I mean, there were times last year, I believe it was, or the year before, where you looked at his sort of on-track antics. It's like, what are you doing? Like all over the road, blocking drivers on hot laps and qualifying. Sometimes he'd be a menace. I think Abu Dhabi, which race was it in Abu Dhabi where he was just a maniac? It's like, dude, calm down. You're playing for sheep stations for 11th place. Like points up for another sort of few positions here. What are you doing? But when he can sort of calm down, he's got good speed, and he can sort of get some good results. Nowhere near as slow as what a lot of people peg him to be, but it's all down to the money side of things, which is, if the money side of you is more well known than your driving side, people just use it against you. And the other problem is that his father has got a horrible reputation outside of Hungary. So yeah, it's like, it is difficult for him, but I think, this year though, he'll sort of do about similar to what he did last year, where have some good performances, but then there'll be other ones where you look at it and you're just like, how long are you going to keep on doing this for? Ayumu Iwasa, I never quite got his hype, and doesn't mean to say I don't think he's a good driver. He's a good driver. I just think he'd probably be someone more suited to the Super Formula Super GT scene, and that's not a knock at him. To say that, you'll do well in the Super Formula Super GT scene, you do better there. is not a knockdown. We know how good the competition is over there. I just think that'd be more his niche. I don't see how he would be figured into future F1 plans. And then that's when you got to ask, well, why are we still in F2? So, yeah. I think, Iwasa, though, having said that, will do better than Nissany this year, but probably another sort of mid-ish season for Dams, provided they can stop getting the raw end of the deal from Mechachrome.
That's been very unfortunate in the last little while for them. Floris, you've got 4th year for Nissany. Of course, the podium at Monaco winning Nissany here, and Iwasu finished very middle of the pack in Formula 3. Dam's looking as strong as the teams we've mentioned so far.
Yeah, well, that's like Josh said, Nissany is not like a terrible driver. He's not a Deletta, he has some speed in him. He had a couple of good performances. Sometimes he doesn't have the luck. I remember at Spa, he had a really good race. He was on for, I guess, a podium or a win. I don't know.
Well, that was the battle with Ticton, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just, I think that was more a racing incident, to be honest with you. It was just, that happens at that corner. But in general, he was, like you said, he was showing more than competence. He was showing speed then.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, like you said, it disappears. I don't know where it goes. He just drops off and he goes to do like crazy stuff. So I don't know. Is his head in it? Is it his personality? I can't. I don't know what it is with that guy, but he has some speed. But he, also it's your 4th season. What are you still doing here? He's 27 years old. He's still part of the Williams Academy, I think, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. And Iwasa has also he has also had a couple of good performances, also in FRAC, I think. Earlier this season or this year, but still, he finished 12th with a Hitech in F3. I don't know. Maybe this jump is a little bit too soon for him, but he's not going to reach Formula 1. Like Josh said, I think Super Formula would suit him very well, and also Super Formula is a very, very difficult category to drive in. And also an even harder category to make your debut in. Some drivers come in and think, we'll beat these drivers and get the title, but it's not that easy.
It's a funny one. There's an interesting team, Williams, Red Bull, putting these drivers in a Dams. Curious to see how the year goes. They seem to be a shadow of the former selves at the moment. We move on to Campos now, and drivers getting promoted. So we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, I think, Floris, with Ollie Caldwell making the jump, and would another year in Formula 3 help him? Who knows? But he's joined alongside, in a similar way to Iwasa, by Ralph Bachong, having a long-term F2 driver alongside him at Campos, at a point where the team are, I don't know if they're necessarily on the up, but they're not doing terribly.
Yeah, that is true. Campos is maybe they didn't do that terrible as they normally do. Caldwell is a driver. You could give, like you said, you could have given him another year in F3, but I don't know what that's gonna do. He obviously has the money. He's still pretty young. He's 19. He didn't do too well in a Prema last year. I think he was the last of the Prema drivers. So again, also not a bad driver, as in he's no Deletta, he's no Mahavir, but I cannot see him excel. I can see him getting some points. And for Bashung, of course, he's been doing better every year, but it's incrementally, a little bit. He's already 24. He's in his 5th season, I think, 5th or 6th season. He finished 10th, so I'll give him 9th this year.
10th with a couple of podiums as well.
True.
I'll defend him if no one else will. Maybe Josh, you're going to jump to the defense. You speak very positively about a lot of drivers.
Yes, that's what I'm known for, speaking positively about junior drivers and not at all ruining their careers. No, I think with Bashong, he sort of came in under the radar last year. I didn't really think he would do what he did, which was it was more than just nagging the couple of podiums. He was constantly up there. You know, he was very good on pace. And yes, like he's in his 18th season or whatever it is, but still, like there are a few drivers who are in there for multiple years and don't go anywhere. Sean Galal, for instance. So, you know, it's great to see that he's sort of getting to his level. And I think they'll carry on to this year, provided Campos haven't dropped off like they tend to do every sort of few years, where it's just like, we're doing too well, we got to drop back again. So, yeah, I think we'll sort of see similar from Boschong this year. As for Caldwell, he does like the channel, so I'm going to sort of be nice with what I say. It's just like, all I'll say is that if the end of last year was any indication, I don't exactly have any high hopes for him. But, you know, was last year his first full season of F3?
No, it was his second, right?
Right.
I think it was
okay.
the second, yeah.
Well, I don't, then in that case, I don't think if that was the second full season of F3.
Trident 2020, Prema 2021,
right.
First year, 16 for 18 points, last year, 8th, 93 points.
Right. Well, I think, you know, after 2 years, that's when you can sort of stop the argument of it's too early a jump. If you're going to jump, 2 years is sort of it. And if you're not quite up to it, then, well, when are you going to be up to it? You know? So, yeah. All I'll say is I predict that Boschong will win the title battle. No, not title battle, the teammate battle at Campos.
That's my stinger for the intro now. Boschong will win the title battle. Cut.
There we go.
Nobody will take Josh seriously anymore.
Well, they do in the first place.
Career ruined.
People did not take me seriously when I said that Max would win the title at the end of 2020. I said Max would win the title. No one took me seriously.
People are idiots.
Who's laughing now?
Exactly. Well, me still.
Boschong 2022 world title. Guess who called it first?
There we go. I echo those thoughts with Ollie as well. Nice kid. If he likes the channel, Josh, that's enough for you. But
you like the channel, you're automatically goated. I don't care where you are in the grid. I'll defend you to the hills.
I just saw Goliath like the channel. Just was watching that there.
Oh, dear.
No, we wish him well. I don't think Campos is going to be the one who's going to win the championship with, but first season get a couple of maybe podiums, good points positions through the year, and see what happens next year. Talk about points positions. Segue galore here. MP Motorsport. We're going into, I guess, the F2 midfield, proper midfield now. Clement Novalak, who was Mr. Consistent in Formula 3 last year, on his way to third place, was it, I think? Joining Felipe Drugovich, returning to MP Motorsport for a third year in what was a move that I didn't expect, Josh. MP Motorsport looking okay.
It's a good lineup. You know, and MP can be good. You know, I think what we saw with Vershaw and Jack Doohan at the end of last year, MP do have a car, it appears, to be there or thereabouts. Now, Novalak's is a weird case. I remember when he, again, it all comes back to TRS, simply because, you know, I've actually been on ground level. I could see these drivers, which is why, you know, it's my conviction that Franco Colapinto is the next GOAT and he needs to get to Formula One, but that's another story. But, you know, with Novalak, I remember when he came over here, it was one of his first ventures into racing, and he was immediately on the pace. And you look at him, and he wasn't even in M2 competition, which is an automatic win. Like, I think it was with Gilles, and he was still doing bits. Now, back when he was with the British licenses too. So I've always liked Clement, but he sort of just fell off the radar and then gradually came back into it with F3 and then really came into it with Trident. And all of a sudden he's in F2. Now, we know he's good. We know he's got some speed. And with MP, that, you know, could work well. And with Drugovich there, you know, there's experience in F2, you know, to help along with it. I think, MP have got a good lineup this year, with some talented drivers, with both of them perhaps having too much of a liking to finishing a race with less stuff on the car than when they went out of the pit garage. Minor things, though. It could be worse. They could have Arthur Leclerc. Still, though, I think they'll have some good fortune this year. Probably third, fourth team in the overall standings, just based on the strength of their driver lineup. But yeah, can't complain too much about that lineup.
The driver lineups from here on out, the rest of the teams looking really strong. We're just looking through them there. But they are one of the standouts. Floris, do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I think I do, because Dragovic had this really good rookie season with MP also. He returns to the team. I think he won like his first or second race in F2. And we all thought, what's happening? Who's this new Senna? We kind of forgot like the year before in was it Freck or whatever? I don't remember. But
Euro Formula, was it?
Yeah, maybe it was Euro.
I think it was Euro Formula where he did win.
Yeah, I think it was maybe Freck where he did not do well. I don't know. He had a year where he finished like way in the bottom of the standings. And he had a really bad year, but he went to F2 and he did so well. And we thought, when he went to Virtuosi, he was gonna fight for the title or maybe even win it. It didn't happen. That might also be the reason he's hooking up with MP again. So I have good hopes, but I don't know. Like a third-year driver, are you good enough? He could do a Nick de Vries maybe, because I still think he's talented. But on the other hand, we have the Prema lineup. We have Carlin, which looks really nice, and ART, of course. So I don't know. The MP are going to be thereabouts, I think, but I don't think any of them is going to win the title. And Novalak is also an interesting case because he's like Josh said, he's always been fast, but he hasn't always had those peaks. He didn't always excel. Like he didn't win a lot of races in a season. He did win British F3, I think, but in FIA F3, he always had good results, but never top results. So he'll probably do decent to good, but I don't think he's gonna, fight for anything major.
It's like we always say, it's consistency is key in the feeder series. Yeah. So I don't think that MP have got any idea they'll win the championship this year.
Is it fair to equate Novalak in some capacity to Zhou? And what I mean by that is that I think Zhou, he always looks speedy. He just never got results, if you know what I mean. Like, I remember seeing, it's just like, I can see he's got some speed, but you then look at just the results, and I don't care how they came about. At the end of the day, the results are the results. And why is he not sort of getting the results that his speed may otherwise suggest? And it's sort of similar to Novalak in a way. But yeah, I don't know. Do any of you agree with that, or am I just on drugs right now?
No, I think, yeah, maybe also.
Maybe yes.
I don't know how you guys wake up in New Zealand, but I think you can also compare it a little bit to Nick Heidfeld and Nico Hulkenberg. Both super fast drivers, but in the end, was it all bad luck that they never got a win or a podium? Heidfeld didn't win, Hulkenberg didn't get a podium. Maybe in the end, you should just say it wasn't good enough. But we don't know that yet for Novalak, but could be the case. I don't know.
I wonder with Novalak if it's the kind of driver on the assumption at some point he would make it to F1, which is a massive assumption. He is that, as you said, Floris, that Hulkenberg driver that is a solid driver that you want in your team. He's probably going to take the car home. He's not going to win the championship, but he's going to consistently get you points. And if you look at some of the drivers we have had in Formula One who are crash happy, let's say, or spin happy at the very least, if you know you are going to get a driver probably getting top 10 finishes, probably bringing the car home, for a lot of teams, especially down the back half of the grid, that means a lot. That's why Hulkenberg's season and Heidfeld's career, not season, were as long as they were, and why Hulkenberg was called upon repeatedly to return, because it's a safe pair of hands, and that's not a bad thing. The Formula One arguably has more of those than standout drivers. So see how that goes. I'm sure Novalak would prefer for us to talk about him as a GOAT.
I guess we need more teams in Formula One, more seats, because like maybe in the future a guy like Novalak, he deserves to be in F1. But if you're not that like Verstappen or whatever, there's no place for you.
Let's go back to the 50s then. Let's go back to the 50s where we have some F2 entrants on the Formula One grid. Yes. Imagine that you just have cars that are 20 seconds slower in the race.
Make it happen. Make it happen.
And influence the title battle.
I'm really excited to talk about this team because I think this is possibly one of the strongest lineups, certainly the top two. ART for 2022. They've got Theo Pourchaire, who I've described in the past as the French coming of Jesus, the way he's spoken about and has been spoken about. And Frederick Vesti, who, similar to Novalak last year, basically consistent, just turning the points through. Josh, that's a really good lineup.
Porsche's going to win the title. And that's coming straight out of the box with that one. Like, I think, someone talked about someone mentioned that the sort of Sauber establishment look at him as the next Prost. There's not a hell of a lot wrong with that assessment. Like, he is, I think Monaco last year sort of cemented like this kid's potential, remembering how young he is. And I think as well as that, the racecraft of his kind of almost in a way understates his actual pace, similar to Prost in a way. There'll be people that'll be like, really, what are you talking about, Josh? Well, all I'll say is this: he's almost certainly going to be an Alfa Romeo next year. That's almost a given. And we're going to see then and there whether or not this kid has it. But for this year alone, we saw what he could do last year, save for a couple of issues that, with either injury or, unreliability, ART not quite being there. But this year, I think, it'll start to come for him. All the ingredients will start to fall into place. ART may just provide a strong enough car for him. But as we saw in the first half of last year for F2, there were drivers who were in it for quite a long time, despite, their mishaps. And Joe, just based on consistency, was in that title fight for a long time. So, yeah, Teo, yeah, for me is going to be the champ. As for Vesti, we know how ART are with their drivers. Whoever's drowning by the second round is going to go into the doghouse. So sorry for Vesti. But yeah, it was nice knowing you, kid. I'll say that much.
Floris, do you think it's going to be a case of the ART curse of the second seat, with presumably at this point Vesti being forgotten, or do you think both of the drivers have a fair shot at the championship?
No, I think it always has been a case of the second ART seat curse, and it will definitely be Vesti. Pourchaire has the Vasseur Sauber ART link, so he's going to be their main guy for sure. And it's also crazy that I think he's the youngest driver, or almost the youngest driver on the grid, and like everyone I talk to sees him as the main championship contender. And we all supposed to think that's normal, but it's not, But this kid is used to winning. He's winning. He won in every category he drove. He didn't win the categories all, but he won in F3. He finished runner-up, I think. He won ADAC F4, which was also a crazy, crazy year. Was he driving Hauger? Yeah, I think he was driving against Hauger then.
Yeah.
But that was an awesome year, by the way. Everybody who, just look it up on YouTube. It was crazy. I think Pourchaire is definitely going to win this year, and he's definitely, like Josh said, going to Alfa Romeo. No doubt about it next year.
A little bit of a predetermination, irrespective of how he does this year. Might take the pressure off a little bit. He's a wonder kid. That's the way they're looking at him. The Prost connotations, wow, it says a lot. But a lot of expectation. It reminds me of a certain Dutchman had a lot of expectation, and look how he did last year, right? We'll move on to another strong lineup. Yuri Vips, Marcus Armstrong at Hitech. Yeah, at this point and going upwards, say for one driver potentially, I'm looking at some title contenders. Josh?
You got two of the most unlucky drivers on the F2 grid in the most unlucky team on the grid. It escaped me for a moment, and then you're just like Yuri Vips and Marcus Armstrong over in Hitech. It's like, oh my gosh. You're just going to see so many DNFs from them this year, just based on crappy reliability, because Vips was with Hitech last year, wasn't he?
He was.
How many races were ruined because of random crap that just broke on his car?
10.
It was too many, of course. Yeah. And then Marcus, who I'd say Liam is a better prospect, but Marcus is a good driver, a damn good driver. And the crap that he ran into last year, it's like, can you get a car that A, is reliable, and B, doesn't change its characteristics from round to round? I think, it's, but then Hitech, we saw that with Liam and Yuri last year. They were failing more than any other team. Not necessarily through their fault, but just stupid stuff like Echochrome engines blowing up, which, is almost a badge of honor in F2 nowadays. Fire extinguishers going off in cars, random ass penalties, just random stuff last year that completely curbed them. And they were both capable of winning the title last year, for sure. And they didn't get close. So Yuri's putting in a lot of faith to Hitech this year to solve it. And Marcus, Marcus has gone into a better team, like in terms of recent form. Hitech will almost certainly give him a better shot, but it's whether they've sort of solved their issues. If they could solve them, it'll give Yuri and Marcus a good chance at fighting for the title. I think maybe we'll see Yuri about sort of third or fourth in the championship. Maybe Marcus a bit further down. I can't see him getting out of the clutches of the crappy luck almost, but it'll almost certainly be both of their last years in F2. I can't see either of them doing any more. So last dance for both of them and a good enough team. Not a bad lineup.
Flores?
Yeah, Armstrong. Yeah, it's gonna be difficult for him, but I think it's also maybe mentally a little bit when you're used to driving for Prema and everything going your way, and then you go into a different, going away from that environment where everything is so meticulously done. That proved to be pretty difficult for him. It maybe mentally was a bit hard. But on the other hand, I think he got his first win in F2 last year. So that will do something for him. But like Josh said, Armstrong and Vips, both super unlucky, always, both super quick. But it's going to be very difficult for Armstrong to even crack the top 5, I think. And Vips, Helmut Marko still has a lot of confidence in him. But I'm going to predict that Lawson finishes above Vips. So I think Lawson has more of a chance to go to F1 than Vips, actually. Yeah.
I won't complain about that. National pride speaking here. Impartiality ends when it comes to the damn passport.
Or somebody liking your video.
True that. Oh, he's both. So there you go, double combo.
It's a winning combination. Just on that point from you, Flores, as well, do you think that's Carlin versus Hitech for Lawson versus Vips, or is that just driver quality?
No, I mean driver quality, and also Carlin and Hitech maybe just about the same level, so it's going to make it even more interesting. Yeah,
podium contention. We saw how good Hitech were. It was Baku when they just were supreme, and the luck did actually fall in their favor. So maybe we'll have one round, maybe 2 rounds, to a longer season like that this year, where we see both of those guys wipe the floor with their competition. We spoke about Liam Lawson then, and there's the chance to talk highly about him, Josh. Carlin this year, another good lineup with Liam Lawson and Logan Sargent. Good inter-team battle, good chance for the championship.
Yes. And obviously Carlin as a team, you can't complain too much about them. Sargent, I think, will definitely keep Liam on his toes. I think there are some people that, he's got his extremes. There are people that don't view him very highly, and then you got people that just think he's the next Scott Speed. Why you would want to wish he's the next Scott Speed is beyond me. But it's still someone that they reckon could be the next American F1 driver. No, you want the next American F1 driver, and the best candidate for that, Kyle Kirkwood. Anyway, moving on. Sargent will definitely keep Liam honest. They got 2 very good drivers at Carlin this year. They'll be up there for sure, winning quite a few races, all that stuff. Definitely one of the stronger lineups. I don't know if I can really add anything more to that other than Liam will be in the title fight. To what extent, I don't know. He won't win it. Well, that's primarily because I've already said who I thought was going to win it. Yeah, good, solid lineup. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And hopefully, in my view, this will lead to Liam getting into AlphaTauri next year.
That's the exciting part, isn't it? It's what happens with all these Red Bull drivers. Floris, we're talking about those Red Bull drivers. There's a good bunch of them. Is Lawson the lead candidate?
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with Josh that he's probably going to fight for the title, but I also already said Porsche is going to win it. I'm pretty confident of that. But Lawson, he had his moments last year, and we all know he's super quick and still also pretty young. So I'm sure he's going to do well, and he's going to, of course, he's in his second year, so he's going to beat Sargent. But Sargent I think he's a bit underestimated. If you look at him, he never really lit the timing screens, but he's when he has the material and when he has the car, he can for sure fight for wins, I think. He's going to be a rookie, of course, but I think I thought about my top 10, and he's going to be in there. He's not going to beat Lawson, but he's going to be, and he's maybe. I find it interesting that Josh said that Kyle Kirkwood might be or should be the next F1 American F1 driver, because if you look at his pedigree from Kyle, he won half of his feeder series races. That's amazing. That's so crazy. So the Americans, they have great drivers. You also have Colton Herta, but I really love that Sargent came back. After his dad's company had financial troubles and stuff, and he lost his seat. So I'm happy to see him on the grid.
I think everybody is, and anybody who wants to hear Kyle Kirkwood and why Josh rates him so highly, episode 5 of this podcast, who was a guest and tremendous guest as well. Some really insightful views on American racing, scholarships, what the problems are with Europe. I don't know, a lot of people would be put off, because I would have been last year, of seeing Indy, Road to Indy rather than F1 feeder series, but it still is, and there were some fascinating points. So have a listen to that if you already haven't. Rounding out now, because we're going to the final teams. This is a peculiar lineup, I would call it. Josh, Virtuosi have got Marino Sato and Jack Doohan. You grimace a little bit there. Why is that?
2 words: Marino Sato. I think, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean. And I know people will point out the Euro Formula title. all I'll say is that series was a prime example of why feeder series are not equal. The moment he gets into something, relatively even keeling, we've seen what happens. Like, he's not a world-class driver. He does not freaking deserve to be on that Formula 2 grid on merit. He's a total journeyman. I wouldn't even say I wouldn't even say he's capable of being in Super Formula. Like, maybe GT300 of Super GT, maybe. But I've got absolutely no sympathy for him at all. Do not think he should be in there. And for him to be in a Virtuosi, I think, is a complete joke. Jack Doohan, though, I've been harsh on the guy because I won't skimp out on the details, because I thought he was someone that just had a bottomless pit of money, just tested to the hills, allegedly did some illegal testing and was dumber than a box of rocks. But that's getting harsh. Talking saying dumber than a box of rocks. But I did maintain that I didn't think he was all that when it came to talent. But then last year happened. Not just for F3, but F2 as well. He came straight in an MP and immediately was on the pace. And it's like, okay, I have to reassess some things here. Maybe he is not what I thought he was. Maybe there is something more to Jack. His problem, though, is that he thought, okay, I need the best possible opportunity to get into Formula One. I'm getting out of Red Bull and I'm going to Alpine. Now, there have been some stupid decisions in the whole of human history. There have been some people who have been wrong. That includes Neville Chamberlain walking off a plane with a piece of paper saying, "Peace in our time." There was the last time someone was as wrong as Jack Doohan saying, "I'm going to get into Formula One now because I got a better chance. I'm with Alpine." Some guy bulldozed his way through the junior series, beat everyone there was to beat, and he still didn't get into Formula One. What does that tell you about the Alpine Academy? Like, they got a good acceptance rate, but they don't got a good graduation rate. Let me put it that way. Like, I'm very confused about that. He clearly knows something we don't. Like, we're talking about F2 here. And I think this year, Jack... Virtuosi, I don't think were as strong last year as we initially thought they were going to be. I mean, obviously, Joe had his consistency, of course, but in terms of car pace, it wasn't that good as we probably thought it was going to be. I don't think it's going to change this year, but Jack will do what he can with it, winning the odd race or two. But probably don't think he'll be in the title hunt. Probably not. Marino Sato, though, down. No faith in him whatsoever. That's just where I'm going to leave it.
Floris, just very vague answers there from Josh with no strong opinions. Do you have anything to say?
No, Virtuosi Racing was actually, they finished runner-up in the team's championship. But if you look at their lineup now, it's I don't mean that as a disregard to Doohan. It's not that good, because they have a second-year driver, and it's Marino Sato. Well, we heard Josh about him, and I agree. And then you have the rookie, kind of a rookie, who's Doohan, who did really well. But he did really well in F3, and it was his only year that he really did well. So I think he's gonna keep on developing, but it's his rookie year, and there are better rookies than him right now. So, I think he's gonna maybe scrape the top 10 in the end, in the championship standings. But Marino Sato is gonna drag the team down, I think.
I'll stress as well, is a third-year driver on 3.5, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, so unfortunately kind of. That shows how anonymous his time in F2 has been.
I mean, he's that slow. He's slowing down time itself. Yes.
You've got a way with words, Josh. I will give you that.
Oh, it's just poetry, mate. It's poetry.
We finally come to the matter of hand. The dominant team in not just Formula 2, but all feeder series at the moment. Prema, with their lineup of F3 champion Dennis Hauger and have you described them recently, Josh, journeyman drivers? Jehan Deruvela, who's been doing it for a little while. This is a bit of a double-parter. Tell us your thoughts on this. But also, we've got a question from Max by Twitter, who asked, what's your opinion on a Prema tax? So that's a bit of a double-parter.
Prema tax. I remember I spoke to a Prema, not a Prema engineer, but someone who did work with Prema in general as a junior series engineer. I think there is this illusion that Prema have the best cars. That's not really the case. It's about prep and all that stuff. Honestly, like, yeah, I think it's a bit of hogwash, the Prema tax thing. It's sort of just easy to tack onto it. The driver lineup though, Jehan, I think honestly, he's shown that he's got good speed. He can run up there with the best drivers. It always seems to come either he seems to pick a part of the season to be competitive in, almost. Like, he's either the best driver in the first half of the season, or he just starts to make a comeback in the second half of the season way too late to be a factor. I probably would say the former for this year. May see some early form from him. I don't think he's going to win the championship. Maybe vice champion, maybe, possibly. I mean, if he can't be vice champion with Prema, at least after this is third year. Which one is it?
Third year, and just to be fair to Jehan as well, they did find in 2020 a performance difference with the car.
Yes,
was it around Monza or so?
Yeah, it was around Monza, and there were discrepancies with the power for sure. But it does seem to be the way his seasons go. He sort of has good halves of years. He doesn't seem to, carry right through. But we may see something similar in the vein of what we saw with Zhou last year, in the sense that consistency may very well pay off for him. With Hauger, I don't quite have as much high hopes for him as what others may have. I don't think he's going to do a Piastri, put it that way. Maybe a race win this year, which sounds strange for Prema, but yeah, I don't know. In my personal opinion, this Prema lineup is a bit anemic compared to the last couple of ones that we've had, personally speaking. Nothing against Jehan, nothing against Dennis. It's just my opinion at the end of the day.
It's all relative to where they've been before rather than where they are now, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll give you the nice, easy get out there as a diplomat here. Floris anemic was the word described there. Do you agree? And I guess, do you agree with that in comparison to Piastri, Schwartzman, Schumacher, and so on?
Well, first off, I'm not an English speaker, so I don't know what anemic means.
So anemic means sort of lacking in blood, weak, basically.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I understand. It's weird because normally when you look at Prema, they always have at least one championship contender, and sometimes even two. I don't think that's the case this year. I think, like Josh said, Hauger is going to do okay. He's definitely not going to pull a Piastri. It's underrated. That's super difficult. Like, only the big ones do that. The Russells and the Leclercs and stuff. It's just too difficult. So he's going to do okay. He has a Prema, of course. So they have an awesome team of people. Like Josh said, it's the same car, of course, but it's the prep work and it's the engineers. It's the high level of the team. And the Revell, I don't have that many high hopes. Like you said, Jim, he had the engine deficit, I think it was. He had a problem with that. So his performance suffered a bit. He's already 23 years old. When are you going to excel? I don't think it's going to happen. He's a super decent driver, by the way. I think he can go on and like win races in WEC or something. But he's not gonna win the championship. And it feels weird to say that Prema, they're definitely not gonna win the drivers' championship this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's to be honest with Jehan, it's tricky with the guy because I don't think he's crap in any slight. Like, he's a good driver. His problem is that Red Bull Academy. Where does he sit there? Like, because you got Yuri, you got Liam, you got Dennis. Where in that lot does he sit? And I mean, I remember, you know who I'm talking about here. That engineer, he rates Jehan highly as a racer, and Jehan's always sort of been thereabouts in general with his teammates. He's also generally one of, if not the fastest of them. We saw at Prema in F3 with Marcus and Bobby as his teammates. He sure as hell was haggling them. They never lost him. So like, I don't know, but at the same time, do you put him in that top sort of realm of drivers who eventually graduate to Formula One? He's in no man's land. Like, it's a very awkward space for him to be in. Really, he's not quite top level, but he is better than quite a few other drivers. So, tricky, Tricky.
Yeah, and also it's not fair to say like he's already this or that old, so he's just not good enough. But he is already 23, and it happens. Like Brendan Hartley was, I don't know how old he was when he got into Formula One, but he's in his third year. He's 23 years old. So what? Let's look at it from another standpoint. What does he have to do to warrant a seat in Formula One on merit?
Win the title. That's basically it.
Yeah, and just wipe the floor with everyone, I think.
I wouldn't say wipe the floor, because I think Marco knows what this championship's like. I think winning the championship would be enough for him. But we all know that won't happen. Not because he can't win the title. It's just that, sometimes what we want in life just doesn't happen. Like, that's the reality, I guess, of it all. And then he doesn't win the title. And then Marco's got to look at him. It's just like, okay, what do I do with you? I've got you as a vice champion. I got Liam down here in fourth in a car that probably wasn't as good as yours. So who do I hire to replace so-and-so? Okay.
Josh, you clearly have opinions, and I'd love to hear them again later in the year as the season goes on. But for the moment, like Josh said, please like, subscribe, comment, all the usual stuff on both YouTube, on all the social medias, Twitter. Look underneath if you're watching. If you're listening, click on the show notes and have a look at them there. You obviously know where to find Josh already, and you'll find our Twitters and everything else you need to know. But for the moment, that's the F2 preview done with Josh Revell, Floris, Josh, and everybody still listening at this point. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week.